before we begin this video, I'd like to say that Sons of the Forest is still in early access, so some things might change in the future, the story might be expanded, more things might be added, plus it's just my theory, so don't take things here way too seriously. Also a warning, this video is going to contain spoilers for Sons of the Forest and obviously the Forest, so be careful. Let's begin from the start. We are a hired mercenary who's been sent to an island to find a billionaire and his family that have been missing for 31 weeks. Remember the 31 weeks as it becomes important later in the story. We obviously don't come alone as we have mercenaries in the helicopter, plus we can see one more helicopter outside of the window. But everything goes south as our helicopter gets shot and we crash. We wake up, but we immediately get knocked out by a white lab coat looking guy, and that's why I'll keep calling him throughout this video. Later we wake up again, we help our mate named Kelvin, and now our goal is to find the other missing crew members. They have GPS trackers, so that shouldn't be too hard. Unfortunately, we find out that all of them are already dead, but we still stay trying to figure out what's happening, and during our stay on the island, we meet a lot of hostile cannibals. But not everyone is unfriendly towards us, as we meet a mysterious lady with 3 legs and 3 arms. At first, she's very cautious, but by not threatening her and removing our weapons from our hands when she comes to us, after a while, she begins to trust us. And here's a fun fact, you can give her a GPS tracker and a weapon and she will occasionally protect you and your base. But she wanders off a lot, so don't expect her to be always there. But hey, you might say, she looks very familiar, and yes, you're right, she's one of the missing people that we came to find. She's the daughter of the missing billionaire, Virginia Puffton. Conveniently, she can't talk much, so we don't learn anything from her. During our stay on the island, we explore a lot of caves, finding random notes and drawings here and there. At one moment, we enter a cave that leads us into a bunker, and we get a very important cutscene. We see a person shooting some sort of a blob when another guy appears with a shotgun to help him out.
Get down, son!
Be careful. But soon after that, we see the white lab coat guy from the very beginning of the game, and he's not happy. But luckily or not luckily, that blob falls on us and we black out. But we wake up later as if nothing happened and we continue our exploration. And another fun fact, this bunker/cave is where you can find the katana. It's important to mention that throughout the entire game in the caves, we keep finding some ore that looks like gold. And in one of the caves, we can even find a note saying, "For your information, this is what we are looking for." I don't know for sure what that ore is, but it might be just gold, and that would explain why the Puffton family is so rich, or maybe that ore is just something else. In any case, by the end of the game, we find a last will and testament from the missing billionaire, Edward Puffton. In his will and testament, he declares that he wants to give almost $600 billion to his daughter, Virginia Puffton. The document was signed on 22nd of May 2022, so that would indicate that the game takes place in 2022. After lots of running around the island and exploring a bunch of caves, we finally find all the keycards and we go into some sort of a bunker. It looks nice inside, and there are a bunch of pictures depicting a cube. The cube is important to the story and we'll talk about it soon. Going deeper, we find a destroyed wall with an opening and a secret door that can only be opened if you have a golden suit. That door leads us into a cave with lava and a lot of mutants/demons. We can call them demons because before entering the secret door, we find a note saying, "Crosses burn demons." And guess what? There's a cross in the game, and the cross makes those demons burn. I'm not even making this stuff up. On our way through the cave, we find some random notes, and at the very end, we finally find a huge golden box that we can enter, the cube. As soon as we enter that cube, we see some people spawn out of nowhere. If you didn't kill Kelvin or Virginia, they'll be here with you in this cutscene. We also see a person with a laptop. Behind him, there's the white lab coat scientist that we saw at the very beginning of the game. But he cannot enter the cube as he's too late and the cube door closes. In the end game cutscene, we see the cube showing some sort of an advanced civilization, and after a few short seconds, the show stops. There are 2 endings. You either hop on the helicopter and leave with Kelvin and Virginia, or you stay with them on the island, if you haven't killed them. The ending and the cutscene with the cube looks very confusing, so let me explain on what I think is happening. First things first, those 2 people that we saw, that's Timmy LeBlanc from The Forest, and the older guy is his father, aka the main character that we played as in the first game, Eric LeBlanc. The reason why it's Timmy and his father and not someone random is because you can see a scar in the right eye. Timmy has the same scar in his right eye at the end of the first Forest. Plus, the theory gets confirmed even more when the guy with the shotgun walks in and says, "Get down, son."
Get down, son!
Providing more evidence that it's Timmy and Eric, aka us from the first Forest. So despite what a lot of people think and thought it looks like in Sons of the Forest, we played just as a regular mercenary and not Timmy. We're gonna talk about Timmy a bit later, but we have to talk about the cube first. The cube is some sort of an artifact that causes a brief dimensional switch. It's mentioned in one of the notes. So the futuristic city that we saw was a glimpse into another civilization in another dimension. Before entering the cube, we find a note saying cube activates every 8 cycles and stay in the cube. There's also a note saying safe in cube. It looks like you are safe inside of the cube when it activates. For those that are in proximity of the cube, when it's activated, you turn into a mutant. We see that happening as the white lab coat guy gets turned into a blob as he didn't manage to enter the cube. And I don't know how far or how close you have to be to the cube in order to get turned into a mutant. Timmy knew when the cycle is going to start as he rushed into that cube with a laptop and a timer. He wanted to get in before the timer ended. We're gonna get back to the facts and notes soon, but let's theorize a bit. If the cube activates every 8 cycles and we have a note proving that, what if 8 cycles is actually 8 months? Puffins went missing 31 weeks ago. That's almost 8 months. So maybe during one of the cube activation cycles, they all became mutants as they were too close to the cube. Notice how Timmy does not enter the cube with his dad. I assume he leaves his dad far away and a safe distance from the cube. How Timmy knows about the cube and its effects, you might ask me? Well, hear this out. At the end of the Forest, the first game, Timmy gets resurrected by an ancient artifact that requires a sacrifice, a matching living person. His father, aka us from the first game, shoots down a plane using another artifact to get a perfect match, aka another kid to save his son. But using the artifact causes some side effects. We can see that at the end of the Forest 1, Timmy has something inside of him. Fun fact, the map that we see at the end of the Forest resembles the current map that we play in Sons of the Forest. So probably current events from Sons of the Forest take place in that Site 2 island. And now that we know that Timmy is possessed by someone or something and he was in contact with the artifact from the Forest 1, that would explain why Timmy in the cube in this cutscene here multiplied and no one else had the same effect, as he was the only one who was resurrected using an artifact from the Force 1. My theory is that Timmy gets healed in that cube, as we already know that the cube causes a brief dimensional switch. The dimensional switch is important because we find a book on the island that Timmy LeBlanc wrote about parallel universes and travel between them. The book must even be credible and not just science fiction, as on the back it says, scientists around the world agree that LeBlanc is the leading expert in the topic and the best person to explain it to the masses. Artifacts from the first Forest and Sons of the Forest are probably connected. If the cube causes a brief dimensional switch, then chances are the resurrection artifact has affected Timmy and gave him some abilities to see or feel parallel universes. That would explain how he's able to explain the parallel universes in his book. Going back to the endgame cutscene, my theory is that when we see Timmy split into multiple people, it's actually him getting healed by getting rid of the other Timmys from other parallel universes. Because he could probably feel them, maybe they were inside of him, I don't know. On top of that, at the end, we see him look at his arm as if he's healed. In one of the rooms, we find cameras and we can see how normal people get turned into mutants. My theory is that it happened during one of the cube activation cycles. If that's the case, then there's a range and a safe distance from the cube. Because Timmy didn't put his father in danger, he left him outside as we don't see him in the cube cutscene. At the end, we can see that Timmy's dad is safe, so the cube did not affect him. Even though the guy with the white lab coat got turned into a blob as he was too close to the cube. Also, it's worth mentioning that all the cannibals around the island are not mutants. That means they are probably some way safe on the surface of the island. My theory is that something must have happened before one of the cube cycles, so the majority of the people got stuck in their bunkers, and that's how they got turned into those mutants. After a while, they all went missing, and now here we are almost 8 months later searching for the Puffton family. Also, it's worth mentioning that we find a lot of dead bodies that took their own lives. Presumably, they knew that they would turn into those monsters/mutants. So they decided that it's a better way to die like that rather than dying becoming a mutant. To make some things even more clear, in one of the caves we find a piece of a newspaper from the Sunset Times that says, Puff Corp outbid Sahara Therapeutics for the remote island. For those who don't know, Sahara Therapeutics were located on the peninsula from the first game, The Forest. They were working on medical treatments and genetics, but we all know how it all ended up with a bunch of mutants at the end. Apparently, Sahara Therapeutics wanted the second private island as well, but Puff Corp outbid them. Puff Corp probably belongs to Edward Puffton, the billionaire that went missing, because Edward's last name is Puffton and it's Puff Corp. I guess it makes sense. Why Sahara Therapeutics and why Puff Corp wanted to buy that island in the first place, I have no idea. Maybe they knew that this island has gold, if that even is gold. Maybe they knew about that artifact, or maybe they just wanted a private island to do their shady business. To add even more side information, it looks like this island was being sold as an exclusive luxury bunker community, as we can see this in this pamphlet. It said that you have to contact for pricing and you could customize your own bunker. On the other side of the pamphlet, we can see what kind of luxury facilities customers would get, so it looks like the Puff Corp was making extra money by selling the facilities. So some things in the game are explainable, but not everything. Like, why did they get stuck and didn't protect themselves from another cube activation cycle? What happened at that time? There are a lot of notes about golf clubs, clubs and golf balls. Those might be coded messages of some sort, and maybe they weren't talking about golf clubs and golf balls at all. But there is a golf course on the island, so maybe it was a safe spot to be during the cube activation cycle. I don't know, maybe. Also, I have no idea why Virginia has 3 arms and 3 legs, and why she called Virginia in the first place. Is it just a coincidence? As in the first game, The Forest, there were mutants named Virginia, as they mutated from the girl named Virginia. Virginia from The Forest has lots of legs, and Virginia here has 3 legs. Is it just a coincidence, or there's something more to the story? Why didn't the white lab coat guy just shoot us, and who is he in the first place? And why those demons were scared of the cross? Was the cross made out of the weird gold-looking substance, and they're scared of that, or is there another explanation? Also, there's the crashed airplane on the island that probably tells some sort of a story. And on top of all of that, some people are speculating that during the endgame cutscene, the moon that we see looks a bit like the golden ore that we find in the caves. But that might be just a bit too far-fetched. Sadly, I can't answer any of those questions as I couldn't find any clues giving any answers. As I said, this game is still in early access, so the developers might add more things and more clues to make the story easier to understand. They might expand on it. So I highly suggest you check it out my Sons of the Forest playthrough, or click here on the second card to my Days Gone Let's Play, or hop over to my channel, go to playlist, and there you'll find a lot of other games that I played here on the channel. If you're not subscribed yet, definitely make sure to jump the subscribe button and notification bell to not miss any future videos. And consider following me on Instagram or Twitter at Epicyric. Yup.